Okay, so welcome to Let's Be Frank. This is our second episode of our new podcast, and today's episode is Let's Be Frank about FiveFriday's organizational structure. And just for a bit of context, the reason that we're talking about this is that we've recently altered the visual representation of our structure, and I say it in that way because not a lot in action has changed from what we were doing before or what we were supposed to be doing before. It's more that visually showing it differently helps people understand it better.
Yeah, I think I like the way that you described it. We changed it upside down. We completely changed the way that we represent it. And as you said, the reason for that was to make sure that we get our people to work in the way that we advocate in our FitFo methodology, and trying to break down some of the barriers. So what we did was we just removed all the lines. In a typical organizational structure, you have managers or leaders and then teams reporting to them. And that's still very much true. But the perceived barriers that created in terms of, am I allowed to talk to somebody that I need information from without working via the hierarchy, that became a frustration.
Yeah.
So the way that we're representing it now, I think reflects, first of all, our culture. It much better reflects the way that we want people to work in terms of a leader culture that we're establishing, and removing barriers.
Yeah. So, I think just to explain, we'll show an image of this, but just to explain how it looks different right now is, as Herman stated, we had a kind of traditional structure where you have the CEO at the top and then a line and then a line of managers or leaders and then some team leads and then and it just goes down like that, which is kind of the traditional hierarchy in organizations. And what we've done is we've, as Herman said, taken away the lines completely, and we've used a circular diagram. So we still have leadership and we still have the CEO kind of overarching the outer circle of our diagram. And then every individual within the company is shown as a little circle, and we're all connected within the inside. And then we use some kind of key to show various teams that are obviously within the organization, but we don't show a reporting structure. And just so that Herman explained that anyone can talk to anyone about what they need in the moment. And I think that also ties into how we expect people to manage their time and their commitments. It's self-managed and self-directed, structured organization.
Correct. So the way that we operate in many of our teams is that a team comes together to do a particular project, and that will include people of different disciplines. And each team is then responsible to assign an accountable person. That accountable person has a specific role. That doesn't mean that the accountable person is responsible for the entire team. But it allows us to communicate better, to communicate up and down a lot more efficiently. And I think that was one of the major points that got us to this representation, or changing the organizational structure. Is, like so many other companies, we struggled with communication, which is obviously a conversation for another time, to just talk about communication.
One of many conversations for
One
another
of many
time.
conversations. Yeah. So despite all the tools that we have to help us, and we use many of them, and from time to time we'll introduce a different tool, and we'll try that and see how efficient that is. But by far the way that we've changed the organizational structure has been the most effective way, in my opinion, and in terms of what I've seen over the last 4 or 5 months that we've done it this way. It has been the most effective in terms of breaking down those barriers of communication.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that there are some challenges with making a change like this, and maybe we must talk a little bit about what some of those challenges are that we are busy overcoming and trying to overcome.
Yeah, so I think the main challenge to overcome is the fact that people perceive it as there's no structure. This is a free for all, which it's not the case. It doesn't mean that somebody from one department can decide that they want to do the job of somebody else tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. We still have our heads of departments who are responsible and accountable for their teams. And in certain cases and in some of our teams, there are very specific structures which we don't encourage them to mess with, because those structures are in place for a specific reason and it works extremely well.
Well, I think that's the point, is if something's working, there's no need to change it. But what we were trying to do with changing the structure is there was something very obvious that wasn't working with the way it was being represented before. And the biggest goal of changing it is to improve delivery and work better. And as you say, we've already seen really significant changes in that regard, and we've seen improvements.
Definitely. You mentioned that there are some challenges, and I think that with any type of organizational structure that you implement, there will be challenges. In the recent survey that we did amongst our people, we got some really good feedback.
Yeah.
We've been running it for, as I said, 4 or 5 months now. Sufficient time to ask for opinions and to gauge how well we're doing and what adjustments we should make. Because that's equally important. This is to continually challenge the status quo.
And again, that's a podcast for another day.
Yes. And we will make some slight changes in terms of the representation. We're not changing anything in terms of how the organizational structure is put together. Excuse me. But we'll make some changes to help clarify what people's roles are. As I say, we didn't change any of the roles. They stay the same. The idea is to allow people to create as much structure as needed, but not more. Yeah.
And it's also an idea of not having structure imposed on you. It's not you're being told to do something a specific way. There's a flexibility within the teams that they can also figure out how it works best for their team in that context within the structure of how we work.
Correct. So it's about both the team and the project that you're working on. Yeah. I mean, some projects will, just by the nature of the project, will require more structure. And then it's up to the team to implement as much of that structure as possible.
This all brings us back to FITFO, which I think is going to get mentioned in just about every podcast we ever do, which is our methodology. And one of the main concepts of that is the ability to adapt to change and to be flexible to change. Because as you hear in so many podcasts and in so many books and in so many business concepts that are happening at the moment, change is the only thing that's going to keep your business alive and being able to change. So I also think that that's one of the things that we're trying to encourage here, is that you need to be able to adapt to this change, even if it's a small change and just a visual change. The concepts were always there in FiveFriday, that you could talk to anyone you wanted,
Correct.
But actually putting it into practice and showing people that it's encouraged, not just allowed, is kind of one of the focuses of this visual representation.
Yeah. So I'm a firm believer that we are actually very comfortable and naturally suited to constantly change. For some people, the moment that you mention change,
Like a swear
they
word.
start yes, it's absolutely like a swear word.
Yeah.
But it's not really. As long as we can see the benefit and the advantage of the change that we're implementing,
Yeah.
we shouldn't be scared to go.
Yeah.
And most of the time, like with anything, we only once we've implemented it, given it some time, looked at what we can improve or not, will we be able to gauge whether it was successful or not.
Yeah.
The fact that we don't know that up front shouldn't prohibit or stop us.
Well, we don't know anything until we've tried it. That's
Correct. We don't.
And the only way this comes up over and over again, and I sent you an email about it yesterday, is the only way that we are going to improve or learn if something works is to just go out there and try it. And if we fail, that's fine, because we'll learn and then we'll improve. And
yes. Which is also
another podcast.
is about failure.
Yes.
We made the point in one of our team chats yesterday, that nobody in the history of FiveFriday has ever been fired for failing.
Yeah. And we've had some fairly significant failures along the way, so it's not like that no one has failed.
But it is the only way that we learn
Yes.
and progress as humans, as businesses, as nations. We have to fail and learn from what we failed at.
Yeah. So, back to the organogram, which is, we've covered a few topics that we definitely want to elaborate on, and it's nice that we have so much to talk about. But with the organogram, I think when we initially did this and we sent out the original communication about it, I think we highlighted some points that one of the things that we really encourage, and we've also mentioned this before, is a leader-leader culture. And we really believe that this representation of our structure and our organogram encourages that leader-leader culture. And it came through quite a lot in the survey you mentioned from the staff, as one of the things that work really well about this, is it does encourage people to step up, take accountability and responsibility, and be leaders.
Yeah, I see many examples of that, and that's something we talked about yesterday, about starting to share those observations.
Yeah.
Because I'm not so sure if it's that visible to everybody, but if we start sharing those success stories, people will be a bit more aware of it, and they'll start seeing it as well. But it's encouraging to see the change that this has brought about. You mentioned earlier that we have to acknowledge that it will present some challenges.
Yeah.
It's about weighing up which are the better challenges.
Yes.
To live with or
Or
to work with.
Is it worth making those change and facing those challenges for the outcome that we expect to achieve?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm positive that the shortcomings of this representation are absolutely worth. Some of those shortcomings will turn into strengths.
Yeah.
It definitely challenges people.
Well, that was one of the things that also came out of the survey, was as what maybe doesn't work, or some people might have said it as what does work, but we're a bit wary about, is that you can't hide. There's no structure to hide behind. You can't say, it wasn't my fault, or I didn't know who to talk to, or I didn't know what to do, because the opportunity is there for them to communicate with anyone and figure that out. So
it's more than just an opportunity. It's their responsibility.
Yeah.
It is everyone's responsibility as much as it is mine and yours.
Yeah.
To hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
And the structure definitely encourages that, maybe a little bit more than some people are comfortable with.
Yeah.
But moving just outside of your comfort zone, that's where the growth happens. We all know that. And that will create a new comfort zone.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll keep shifting the comfort zone.
Yeah.
To a place where we can all grow.
Well, hopefully the camera is still going. I'm pretty sure it will be. My computer's just locked. But yeah, so I mean, that's an overview of our structural or our organizational structure changes that we made at FiveFriday. And I'm sure we'll give you an update in a few months' time to say if there were any other changes we've made to it based on how it's been operating. But yeah, that's our second episode. Let's be frank about FiveFriday's organizational structure. And we'd love to hear from you. What do you think?
Thank you.
Thank you.